Caitlin Clark walked away from the Indiana Fever. When she said point blank, "No, I left them," it wasn't as a player stepping away from a team. It was a wrecking ball to the entire WNBA infrastructure, a moment so loud, so jarring, so unexpectedly honest. It ripped the league like a siren. This was never built to last. It was shocking, but at the same time inevitable, because how long did they really think this was gonna hold? How long did WNBA realistically build his entire empire on the back of one 22-year-old rookie throw to his every night? Larry gets slammed the hardwood without consequences. You're here for the real story and not to filter version. Subscribe, and if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. And then expected a smile through for the cameras. Eventually something's gonna give, and just did. But let's back up for months now. Caitlin Clark has been a headline not just for Indiana, not just for women's basketball, but for sports in general. She was a momentum, the story, the ratings, the revenue, the attendance, the aura. And then without her, what happened? Everything fell apart. Ticket sales plummeted. Good TV ratings dipped, merchandise left on the shelves, the media buzz at once hover like a halo around every Fever game gone, radio silence, the same cameras at once line up to catch every step she took pointed somewhere else. What does that tell you? That tells you this whole thing was no over about the league, it was about her. And now that you've removed yourself an equation, the truth is being exposed in real time. The WNBA is in freefall. But why did she leave? Look, no one's saying she didn't want this. Caitlin Clark loved the game. You could see it in her hustle, her resilience, her willingness to take its literal hits and still drop dimes and logo threes like she was born to do it. But when you become a phase will lead before you even unpack your rookie season luggage. When the only protection you get a half-hearted post-game statement from a commissioner who's more worried about image than injury prevention when you're being assaulted under the rim night after night, and no one steps in. Eventually, you wake up and realize, I'm not quitting on them, they quit on me. So when Caitlin said, "No, I left them," it wasn't just cold, it was clarity. It was a first honest. And in a lead full of spin shooting, get traded and get cut. She didn't ask for rest. She walked away on her own terms because league built her into a brand and then a band. And her as a human being. Now the WNBA, scrambling Commissioner Engelberg, is probably locked in a boardroom somewhere trying to write new script. Because one they were running, it's done, it's over. It relied on Clark being indestructible, omnipresent, forever available to boost numbers and make up for decades and neglect. But you can't run a league on vibes and verticals. And let's talk about those numbers, because once Clark exit stage left, the financials followed her. Ticket prices down over 30% in less than a week, merchandise sales cut in half, TV ratings off a cliff, and now sponsors or ghosting the same networks that were bidding for airtime, suddenly reworking contracts. As a cold breeze blew going through WNBA front offices, and it sent a quiet part out loud: you had one job and you blew it. But the most tragic part, they didn't have to. Caitlin Clark didn't need to be the only story. She should have been one of many, one star and a consolation, a talented the league could have and should have been building for years. But instead the WNBA saw a viral moment and said, perfect, let's cash out. They forgot that momentum doesn't come from a single athlete. It comes from infrastructure, from investment, firm respect. And instead of giving her that, they gave her a scheduled pack like an NBA vets. No protection, no backup, no narrative support, just expectation after expectation. Until the second she got injured, they were flying Indiana how to Atlanta to keep the show live. It's not just unsustainable, it's unforgivable, and now they're paying for it, not in headlines, but in empty arenas, in cancel commitments, in quiet press rows, and awkward camera angles that try to crop out the half-empty stands. And here's where it gets worse. The league tried to plug the hole. They pushed new faces into the spotlight, tried to spin the narrative. This is our time to highlight of the talent, they said, but the public didn't bite because the groundwork was never laid, because the fans were never introduced to anyone else. The WNBA didn't build a league, they built a pedestal. And when the person on a pedestal walked away, everything crashed, and honestly that's not Caitlin Clark's burden to carry. She warned them with every hard foul, with every dirty play, with every side eye and post-game quote, where she quietly suddenly started speaking truth into the mic. She was run hold league up even as it weighed her down, but now she's done, and whether or not she comes back, that's up to her. But the WNBA, they've got a choice to make right now. They can either keep pretending this was all just a temporary adjustment, or they can admit it. Caitlin Clark didn't fail the league failed Caitlin Clark. So where do we go from here? Do they rebuild, actually protect their stars, elevate? The full roster talent has been sitting in the shadows while one name sold all the tickets, or do they try to recreate the same formula with the next viral rookie, hoping no one notices? Is the same tired blooper when new face. Either way, one thing is clear: Clark was a mask, and now that is off, the WNBA has nowhere left to hide. So what you think was his Caitlin breaking point or her break out? Was league ever really ready for her, or just hoping to rent her shine? And can the WNBA recover without her, or is this the beginning of the end? Less known. Comment below and hit that subscribe button for more raw and filtered deep dives into the drama, the meltdowns, and the moments said define sports history and real time, because this isn't just a story about a player leaving her team. It's the moment the league had a look in the mirror and finally faced the truth. What happens when the only person holding your lead together says I'm out? Because Caitlin Clark didn't just quit on a team. She didn't just walk away from some toxic locker room energy or bad coaching. She quit the system. She left the entire model they built, and that's what's shaking the foundation. She exposed it in one sense. No, I left them. Read that again, because that's not just defiance, that's not just frustration, that's an indictment. And the subtext, it's deafening. She's saying, I didn't give up. I was set up, and you know what? She's right. Let's not dance around it. The league used her. They used her hype. They used her body. They used her image, her brand, her talent. And when it was time to protect her, they handed her a jersey, and prayer game after game, she was targeted, not metaphorically, physically. You saw it: hard fouls, cheap shots, questionable officiating over and over again. And what are the lead? Do nothing, no extra protection, and no public statements, no league-wide down on dangers play, just silence and reruns of her buzzer beaters. Because they didn't care about her, they cared about the numbers. She was revenue, she was ratings, she was jerseys, headlines, clicks, and halftime interviews. And that's all she was to them. A marketing plan and sneakers. So when Caitlin finally stood up and said, no, I left them, it wasn't selfish. It was self-preservation. And let's not forget the irony here. The same league that begged for visibility finally got it, and then didn't know what to do with it. They turned when the greatest opportunities in women's sports history into a one-woman show, then got blindsided when the star won off a stage. So now they're scrambling, trying to revive media interest, try to calm down sponsors who are already dialing. Other networks try return like things and change, like large departure is just a temporary leave or a personal decision. But we know better. We know what it looks like when an athlete take back their agency, when they say, I'm not gonna break my body for your broken system. And a real problem she was, the glue, the bridge between casual fan and then committed ones, the reason anyone outside of women's basketball circles even care what the WNBA was doing this year. And now without her, the glue's gone, the bridge is gone, and fans are wondering if the whole thing was ever real. Because let's talk about what really happened behind the scenes now. Franchise as our panicking front offices are getting testy, coaches are answering more media questions about Clark's absence, her actual game. Some teams are quietly furious, not her, but at the lead, at how poorly to handle this, how they over-promoted one rookie and under-supported everyone else, because now every other team is dealing with the fallout to their games, half-empty their storylines, ignored their sponsors, losing interest. You think it's just Indiana that's in trouble? Think again. Because when your whole growth strategies follow this one player everywhere, you don't just lose one team. When she leaves, you lose the direction of your league, and the players don't get twisted. They're watching as all play out in real time. And they're not happy. They've been carrying this lead for years through low pay, the media blackout to injury after injury without the resources there, and be counterparts get a standard. They fought for this moment, for the attention, for the audience. But when that spotlight finally came, it didn't shine on them. It shined on her, and only her. And now that she's gone, that light is flickering, and resentment, it's brewing. Because let's be honest, some players feel like Clark got everything handed her. The media loved the star treatment, the hype, and now she gets to walk away and take the attention. Whether it's complicated, because on one hand they understand why she left. She wasn't protected, she was overplayed, she was overexposed, and she was undersupported. But on the other hand, they're the ones left holding the bag. They're still here, still playing, still grinding through back-to-backs and bad calls and broken systems. But now they have to do it in empty arenas with reporters asking about someone who isn't even in the building. The vibe off, the energy gone, the league unprepared. And here's where things get dangerous, because without Clark, this season just lost his storyline. And without a storyline, sports lose their soul. This is bigger than basketball now. This is about trust. The league promised fans that this year was different, that the WNBA was entering a new era, that this was finally the time when women's sports would get their due. But now that promise feels broken. The new era lasted less than season, and fans are checking out. You can feel it. The buzz is fading. The clicks are slowing. The jerseys or so hang on the racks, because the one thing fans hate more than losing is feeling lied to. They bought into the hype, they tuned in, they showed up, they gave WNBA everything I've been asking for, and in return they get a rigged deck, one star, one story, one plan, and the second you walk away, the whole thing collapsed like a house of cards in a wind tunnel. So what now? Does the WNBA finally rebuild for real this time? Not around one person, not around one viral name, but around the actual town. This league has the stories, the grit, the rivalry. Are we just waiting for the next Caitlin Clark to come along so we can do this whole thing again? Because that's the real question. Was it a hard lesson that finally waked the league up, or was it just another moment in a long line of missed opportunities? Either way, this is a reality now. The face of your lead just walked away, and she didn't slam the door. She left it wide open. Your move, WNBA. The WNBA got exactly what asked for. They wanted the moment, they wanted the buzz, they wanted a mainstream relevance, the celebrity fans, the sold-out arenas, the flair. She headlines, and they got it, all of it. But they weren't ready for what came next. Responsibility. See, building a league on one star is a new sports history, is full of it. LeBron, Serena, Tiger, Brady. But those leagues, they learned to use a spotlight as a foundation, not a crutch. They grew the moment. They surrounded those icons with structure, protection, investment, and supporting cast. The WNBA, they built a bonfire out of Caitlin Clark momentum and forgot to install a single fire extinguisher. And when she got burned, they blamed the wind. Let's not forget, this is the same lead at litigant mode on national television, game after game, with barely a whisper concern from officials, execs, or broadcast partners. They let the culture shift into something toxic, where physicality turned into target practice, where welcoming her to league looks suspiciously like running out of it. And worst part, they knew exactly what was happening, and they let it ride, because every shove, every foul, every scuffle, many engagement, more tweets, more views, more controversy, more content. Caitlin Clark wasn't just the player. She was clickbait in motion, and illegal. Loved it until she didn't, until she took herself out of the equation. And suddenly all those eyes gone, all that energy flatline, all that growth exposes a sugar high with no substance. Let's talk about what that looks like now. Sponsors or ghosting emails. Network works are reconsidering their broadcast priorities. Casual fans who showed up because of Clark are tuning back out, and the players still grinding to the season. They're stuck in a league that suddenly feels hello, not because Caitlin was everything, but because the league acted like she was. There were so many opportunities to build with her, the spotlight, the next generation of stars alongside her, to build tension, rivalry, storylines, something fans acclaim even when she sat out. But the WNBA bid it all on one name, and now that name is no longer in the box score. The box office close with it. Let's talk numbers. Before she left, TV ratings were soaring, ticket prices hit WNBA level resale values. Social media was flooded with WNBA clips, hot takes, and debates after she left. Viewership dropped by nearly 50% in a week. Arena attendance dipped so low. Teams are consolidating sections just to avoid visual embarrassment, and game highlights, they're getting less traction than a middle school science fair project. This wasn't just a bad week, this was an exposure event. It wasn't is Caitlin Clark's absence that to the damage, it was everything that followed it. The league's response, it is what made things worse. Instead of owning a failure, they leaned harder into PR. Attendance is still strong. Fans are excited about the future. Parity has never been better. Miss me with the corporate poetry. We're watching what's happening in real time. You can't gaslight a fan base that actually paid attention this season. We saw you promoted. We saw who got the interviews. We saw got shoved in silence. And we definitely saw who walked away when it became too much. Now here's where it gets even messy. In the other players, they're talking, maybe not publicly yet, but they're not stupid. They know what at stake. They've seen the energy shift. There are whispers and locker rooms, frustration in post-game interviews. Some feel betrayed, others feel validated, and a few are wondering whether they should have done the same thing. Because here's the truth, Caitlin Clark do what everyone else was afraid to do. She pulled the record. She put herself first, and she exposed the fact that no matter how good you are, no matter how much you elevate the game, if the system doesn't protect you, you owe nothing. And now the league has a sit with that, and so do we. Because whether you loved or hated her, Caitlin Clark, man, I heard she drew a new eye. She elevated the stakes. She brought national urgency to the WNBA, and now that she's gone, the urgency is gone too. And that's the scariest part, because once that momentum disappears, it doesn't always come back. You think the casual fan's going to wait around while the league retools its image, while execs strategize next phase, while the media pivots back to ignoring women's basketball altogether. No, they'll go with excitement is where the stories are, where the players are protected. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't just a Caitlin Clark problem, this was a WNBA identity crisis, and now they're stuck at the crossroads. Can either continue try to Frankenstein the season back to live with hello hype fake rivalries and move games, or they can face the truth, tear down what doesn't work, and rebuild his league into something sustainable, something worthy of Caitlin, something worthy of every player who didn't leave, something worthy of the fans who showed up, not just for one star of the game itself, because that's what it has to be now. No more shortcuts, no more high machines, no more smoke and mirrors. You want to grow, then do the work. Promote everyone, protect your players, build actual fan communities, not just highlight reels. And for the love of everything holy, stop making one woman carried away when entire sport, because of the season taught us anything. It's this: when your foundation is built on one star, you don't have a lead, you have a ticking clock. And now the alarm gone off. The question is, who's still listening? Drop your thoughts below. Was Clark justified in leaving? Can WNBA come back from this? Or we watching the biggest myth opportune nutty in modern sports? Whatever happens next, you better believe we'll be here to break it down, because the lights may be dimming, but the drama, oh, it's just getting started. Because after all the headlines of fallout in the league-wide panic, we're left with one brutal echoing truth that no amount of PR spin can fix. Lynn Clark didn't abandon the WNBA. The WNBA abandoned itself. They finally had the spotlight they've been begging for. They finally had the eyes, the momentum, that this is our moment energy. You could feel it for the first time. The casual fan gave a damn, and they didn't show up for Caitlin, they showed up for women's basketball. But what did the league do with that attention? They narrowed the focus, they ignored the infrastructure, they rolled the dice on a one-woman marketing plan and prayed she will get tired, injured, or disillusioned. And now that she's stepped away, not just physically, but symbolically, the league is backward started, but worse, because now the world's watching the spiral. And for Kay, it didn't have to be this way. Clark could have been a spark, not entire fire. She could have been part of a bigger story, a league-wide renaissance, a real investment, the town that already there, and a broader movement toward growth. Instead, she became the safety net, the golden goose, the band-aid on a bullet. All, and now that she's removed herself, We're watching the league bleed, and listen, is not too late. The WNBA can course correct, but it's gonna take real humility, not fake. We support our players. Instagram cat options, not vague mission statements about learning and growing. We're talking real investment, real marketing, real storytelling. Players like Io Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Eriko Gumbo, Sabrina Ionesco, they're not side characters, they're stars. They just haven't been marketed legs. SARS, build your league around them. They give us villains, give us dynasties, give us drama that doesn't rely on one woman to carry the narrative every single night. Because of the WNBA, it doesn't evolve from this moment, if it doesn't grow past Caitlin Clark era and start treating its players are the icons they already are, then this wasn't stumble it as a collapse, and the league won't just lose a season, it'll lose a trusted, the very fans who are finally ready to believe. So here's the question now, with the WNBA arise from the ashes of the self-made crisis, or will become just another cautionary tale of what happens when you chase the spotlight but forget to build a stay.